Mwamukiri magongo na mandwairo ngayuri mbere tutingi hotu nithu mwene nyaga twakuhoya.
Origin, territory, trade and agriculture of the people of Agikuyu. The Kikuyu people are a Bantu-speaking people who occupied territory in what is today called Central Kenya in East Africa from the 17th century onwards. They established themselves primarily as agriculturalists around Mount Kenya and the highlands. The Kikuyu people thrived and were able to use their foodstuff surplus to trade with neighbors such as the Maasai people. Although for much of their history, the Kikuyu did not form any centralized political institutions, they did eventually become the driving force of Kenyan nationalism and the anti-colonial movement in the mid-20th century, particularly the Mau Mau uprising. Today, the Kikuyu make up some 20% of the population of Kenya, where they are the largest ethnic group. The forerunners of the Kikuyu and several other groups in East Africa were the Agikuyu, a Bantu-speaking group who from the late 11th century migrated to the region from the Central Africa. The Agikuyu began to clear the forest around the southern slopes of Mount Kenya to create land suitable for agriculture. Consequently, as in other regions, the Bantu speakers spread their knowledge of iron smelting, pottery making, and farming skills with indigenous forager and nomadic tribes. Archaeological evidence of iron smelting and new types of pottery in the area has been radiocarbon dated to the 12th century or even the 11th century. There were also migrations of people to the area from the East Coast and Northeast Africa, a movement which features in the Kikuyu's own oral traditions, creating a melting pot of cultural and technological exchange that led to the thriving communities able to produce a surplus of foodstuffs. By the 17th century, this mix of people had evolved into two major and distinct ethnic groups, the Meru and the Kikuyu, who spoke the Bantu-derived language of that name. The name Kikuyu is from a Swahili language, whereas the people themselves use the name Gikuyu. The Kikuyu, moving slowly southwards, came to occupy the territory in what is today Central Kenya, south of the River Tana and between the coast of Lake Victoria to the west. This area is sometimes called Kikuyu land. Their southern neighbors were the Maasai, and to the north of them were the Somalis. Trade routes largely passed to the south of the Kikuyu area, from Pagani on the coast to northern and southern Lake Victoria. Kikuyu traditions do record a long-standing trade with the Akamba people to the south and closer Maasai. They former exchanged animal skins and oke, a type of beer, where the latter offered cattle, milk, skins and leather cloth for staple foodstuffs and manufactured goods. Illustrative of the peaceful relations between these various people is the fact that the Akamba often exchanged their labor for goods each harvest time. The Kikuyu people cultivated millet above all, but also beans, peas, sorghum, yams and dulu, a green vegetable traded in quantity with the Akamba. Some crops like maize and sweet potatoes had been introduced to the region via the Portuguese in the 17th century. Farming methods included the use of irrigation and terracing, but were not universally applied by all Kikuyu groups. Tools included hoes, axes, machetes and digging sticks. Livestock were kept as a source of milk, meat, and leather for clothing. Unlike the Maasai, animal husbandry was very much secondary to agriculture, and so the ownership of cattle in particular was a sign of status in Kikuyu society. Not all Kikuyu groups were predominantly agriculturists. Some in the south were pastoralists like the Maasai, or at least semi-pastoralists, while the other Kikuyu thrived on hunting and collecting honey and beeswax. Today's Kikuyu farmers largely concentrate on coffee, maize, and fruits. In our next episode, we are going to look on social life of the Kikuyu community as well as religious practices. Stay tuned. My name is Steve Juguna Wairimu.
cia wendo wa rũrĩrĩ, ũiguano wa Gĩkũyũ na Mũmbi, mwene Nyaga.